Welcome everybody to the Pirate Skills Meetup. Today, one of my favorite topics, analyzing your way to e-commerce profitability. You can get all of the resources at getpirateskills.com/analyze. And I want to show you what we got in store for you today. I think you first of all need to get a grasp on why analytics matters incredibly more than usual in e-commerce. And you need to do three things, in my opinion, to double your e-commerce profits from the side of analytics. And these are my three main tactics: improving your conversion tracking, managing your cookie consent well, and better reporting for faster learning. And at the end, we will have time for our Q&A session. If you guys are new here, I'm Ben. I'm the founder of Pirate Skills. I consider this my startup number 8. I found my home as a growth marketer, which is usually defined in general growth marketing as experiment and data-driven marketing. And to be honest, analytics has turned out to be my most valuable skill that I've built over time. I was always interested in numbers, but when I started to study psychology, the focus of explaining human behavior through numbers has become much more apparent over time. And the ability to see data, let's say from a Facebook, a Google, a Pinterest campaign, from a UX improvement, from an A/B test, and to interpret that has given me so much flexibility in the past. And I really would like you to take this topic with interest. It sounds boring for some people, but to me, there's so much juice in this. And I would just like to share some of my best practices in the area of e-commerce in here. So why does analytics matter so much in e-commerce, in my opinion? We're going to start with a little game in the beginning and then explain the fundamental laws of e-commerce and most other businesses. So let's have a bit of fun. Let's play Broker Billions. The challenge for you is this. You're seeing two Facebook campaigns here. Let me show you. Here you got campaign A and B. Let's just call them A and B. And you have to make a choice on every step of the customer journey that I show you. These are always screenshots of the customer journey from the perspective of the ads manager. How much money was spent? How many impressions did you get? How many people put something, went to the landing page, put something in the basket, checked out, bought something, what was the value, that kind of stuff. But you can only see into a certain depth. And we start at the very beginning. One of this, and the thing is that one of those two campaigns is highly profitable and one is going to make you broke. And you have to choose based on the numbers you're currently seeing which one it would be. And it actually doesn't matter how much money has been spent on them. This could be, absolutely equal numbers. It's about profitability. Which one is profitable and which one is driving you broke? So you see that we spent about 1,000 euro on both of these campaigns. And we got, here we got 68,000 impressions. And I want to explain the main e-commerce KPIs within this game. An impression is always when somebody sees an ad on the Facebook newsstream, for example, just seeing it. And this costs us €7.42. And here €6.54 for 1,000 impressions. That is called the CPM. So in this case, the campaign B looks cheaper because we get more impressions for less money. Frequency means how often have the people, the unique users that have seen this ad. In the top one, they have seen it 2.5 times. In the lower one, 1.5. And that results in reach. And reach in the Facebook world means how many people have seen it. So while impression is how often was it shown, reach means how many people have seen it. Based on this data, which one would you choose? Which one do you think is more profitable than the other? Which one is going to make you broke? Which one is going to make you billions? It's really hard to tell right now, right? Because you have so little information. You just saw the reach and it's like, annoying, Ben, I need to see more in-depth numbers. All right, just make a preliminary choice. Let's look at the next step in the journey. We again look at the same campaigns. This is A and this is B, and the same reach numbers, but now we can actually see how many unique outbound clicks we are getting. Unique outbound clicks means how many people actually clicked on the link to our website, to our online store. 490 here for campaign A, 291 for campaign B. There's a much higher click-through rate for campaign A, which shows that maybe the ad or the targeting was a bit more engaging. And you can see that because the CPM, the cost per 1,000 impressions, was higher, the click prices are pretty similar, even though the cost per clicks are very different. This one has twice as much engagement. At the click level, they have leveled out. They look pretty much the same. And now we see something very interesting, the unique landing page views. Landing page views means somebody who landed on my website and who consented to being tracked with Facebook pixels. Because you should be wondering, why do 490 people click and only 207 people land on the landing page? If you saw this, good for you. And the explanation in this scenario is our cookie consent opt-in rate. You know that we now usually get like a little pop-up. Do you want to be tracked or not? Do you want to customize your trackings? This is what happened. Only 40% of people opted into tracking here. And now Facebook is only aware of 207 people out of the 490 and can only see what happens there. And okay, how much does it cost to get a landing page view? Now this one looks cheaper, number B. At this point, I would have thought maybe A is more profitable. When I look at the landing page view, I think it should be more likely to be B. But again, if people just see the ad but not go to my online store, it's worth nothing. And this is where this point here, this is where the Facebook pixel comes into place. There's such a huge difference between your ability to be able to track what happens after the click or only looking at the numbers before the click. It is almost impossible to make a proper decision. But again, you say rightly, Ben, we need to see deeper into the funnel. All right, let's continue this game. And now we have the same campaigns again here. This is A, this is B. The same amount of landing page views, but now we can see how many people engage actually with e-commerce activity, because just page views from cheap clicks doesn't help us. People need to be interested in our product and engage in add to carts and checkouts and stuff like that. Okay, now the campaigns fall apart while the cost per landing page view is still pretty close. Now we can see that the cost per add to cart and the cost per unique checkout is radically cheaper for campaign A. Only 20 euro to initiate a checkout. Usually people go to a landing page, they visit after that a product detail page, they press the add to cart button, then they say, yes, I want to initiate the checkout. And these are the two events we're looking at here. Now campaign A looks much cheaper and people have already went through this journey quite far. Why should you go this far in the e-commerce journey without converting, for example? That would be super weird. So my confidence in A has grown quite a little bit. How about you guys? Would you bet on A or on B? Which one would you choose, right? Okay, you say like, okay, but what about purchases and how much they bought? All right. Here you are. Here are all the numbers. You can see your checkouts now here in the cost per checkout. And now people are finally buying. We are a bit lucky in this campaign because 100% of people who started the checkout actually bought something. That is not very common, but in this case it was true. And here 9 out of 10, which is also extremely high, was converting. And the cost per purchase is now a huge difference. 20 euro here, 40 euro here per purchase. The absolute numbers don't matter that much because campaign A just got a lot of more money than campaign B. Rightly so, because the return of advertising spend is more than double as much in campaign A than B. So what does return of advertising spend mean? If you invest 1 euro, how much revenue do you get back for that money? In this case, it's 4 compared to 1.7. That is incredibly different. It didn't look that different in the beginning, but because now we are able to look through the whole customer journey, the choice becomes much clearer. But still, there's a question open. Is this campaign profitable or not? You could say like, oh yeah, but I get 4 euros. Yeah, but for every dollar you spend. But you have to also pay for the product to be produced. You have to consider shipping costs. You have to consider your return rate. You have to consider employees you have to pay. And now the margins get smaller and smaller and smaller. So at a return of investment 4, we already have to invest 25% of the revenue that we made into cost per acquisition. Is this profitable or not? That is actually something that I would have to tell you. But there's a little plot twist here. This was actually the same campaign, but I split it through Facebook and Instagram. It was the same campaign with 2 placements. Each was nicely optimized. And in one ad, in some people saw it on Facebook and some people saw it on Instagram. And now you can see that the Facebook campaign, this is not a pitch for Facebook or Instagram, yeah? You can see that the same ad on Facebook did twice as much return of advertising spend as on Instagram. But if you would have looked at this campaign just from the broad perspective of the performance of this campaign, and you looked at this 3.29 of return of advertising spend, and I would have told you, as I do now, that only a return of advertising spend of greater than 3.5 is actually profitable, you would have turned off this whole campaign. Yeah, you spent 1,000 euro, it didn't expect your minimum return of advertising spend of 3.5, let's turn it off. That would have been a huge mistake. Only after the split of the placements between Facebook and Instagram, and there was also a bit of money in Messenger, and in this on the audience network, but 99% of the money went into Facebook and Instagram newsfeed. You wouldn't have seen this. And now you're able to make a good choice. You can now choose not to turn off this whole campaign, but maybe focus on the placement on the Facebook newsfeed with a nicely profitable campaigns that doesn't make you broke, but maybe even billions. I hope this little game enlightened you a bit of the importance of your ability to see deep into the funnel and to keep digging even once you look at the end of the funnel and splice it and dice it by age, gender, target groups, placements, advertising devices that they looked on, and all this kind of stuff. Because the fundamental truth in e-commerce is this simple equation. If your cost per acquisition, CPA, is higher than your customer lifetime value, you get broke. You spend more money than you earn. And our goal is, with analytics, to see which of our campaigns have the opposite, where the cost per acquisition is lower than the customer lifetime value. And this helps you to scale and to increase your ad budget, increase your team size, increase the order volume. Understanding this fundamental equation and having the ability to track that for your business, that's the key. Yeah? And you need to be able to measure that CPA, that cost per acquisition. And I just got some practical pointers for you here to start in the beginning. In the beginning, you want to simplify the calculation of your cost per acquisition as much as possible. I personally even ignore like personnel costs, office costs, and I just start with my average costs per acquisition in terms of advertising spend and costs of goods sold. I really try to simplify it, because if you start this whole, I have to factor in every pencil that I'm buying and the hardware that I'm booking, then you will not get ahead very easily in your performance campaigns. And the second suggestion is to start with a simple spreadsheet and to just see like how much money did I spend in my ads manager and how many purchases did I get. How much money did I spend? How much money did I invest? Maybe in ad spend and other things. And how many purchases did I get, let's say in a 90-day time frame. And this will give you a broad idea in a simple spreadsheet scenario of what your true cost per acquisition is. And as an additional help, you use your ad managers on Google, on Facebook, on wherever you do ads, because they are actually quite capable, as you saw, to show you a good estimation of your cost per purchase. But you have to consider that this is biased through consent management. People are constantly learning about more data privacy policies, and we have to be more strict than ever these days before we start tracking people. All right, but this was one part of the equation, the cost per acquisition. What about estimating your customer lifetime value? This is actually much harder, and I'm going to show you in a little bit a couple of tools that really help me to do this. But I want you to understand the basic math behind it. So what does customer lifetime value mean in e-commerce? In normal words, it's how much revenue do you make per customer over the lifetime of the customer. You may be selling sports nutrition in the example of Body IP, or a coaching calendar and workshops in the case of Klarheit, or beauty products like John Len does. And people hopefully do not buy only once, but maybe within a 90-day time frame, they buy 2, 3, 4 times. And whatever they order on average times the number of purchases, that is your customer lifetime value. But how do you calculate your average order value? This is the average order value. This is the first part of the equation. The simplest way to calculate this, and you get this out of your shop analytics, is to look at how much money did you make in net revenue without VAT, just divided by the number of total orders. How do you get the purchase frequency? You check, oh yeah, how many purchases do I have in my system, and how many customers do I have in my system? And then you get like a number like people buy 2.4 times in 90 days on average in my home, in my business. And you can see that the total orders cancel each other out. So you could just divide the number of net revenue in a given time frame divided by your total customers to make it quick. And I know that I'm oversimplifying here a little bit, and I'm not considering cohorts at this moment, but we want to keep it simple. Yeah, we're gonna get estimations of your customer lifetime value. It's already hard enough. But remember, why does analytics matter so much in cost per acquisition? You need to know why does analytics matter so much in e-commerce? Sorry, you need to know your cost per acquisition and your customer lifetime value, not only in total, but per product, per channel, per campaign, per ad, per image that you are using. And only when you get this balance right between cost per acquisition and customer lifetime value are you able to scale and double your e-commerce profits, which is our goal in this series. So if you want to hear more about this and also watch some of the videos that we built upon in the past, you saw that this is going to be strategies 7, 8, and 9 in our series. So we already have 6 videos uploaded. Go to our YouTube channel, leave a sub there, and watch the videos that might help you to achieve your goal of doubling your e-commerce profits in the future a bit faster. All right, and the next part is now the logical consequence. Okay, I believe that analytics matters. How do I improve my tracking so I can see my numbers? That's in the next part. Until then, you have the option to ask your questions. If you go to slido.com, enter the code R or scan this neat little QR code, you will see a couple of questions. We got 5 questions already in here. Thank you already. I see some questions about Facebook and Instagram and unique ads. Some questions about possible to use leads. Yep, we're going to answer all of those questions at the end. Please go to slido.com, enter the code R and upvote the questions that you are most interested in. And if you have a new question, like a challenge that you are facing in terms of tracking your e-commerce store, then just enter it, and we are very open to answer all of those most upvoted questions at the end of this meetup. All right. Improving your conversion tracking is my strategy number 7 out of 15 in our Double Your E-commerce Profits series. So why is e-commerce tracking, why is this conversion tracking so important? If you want to be able to see the changes that you have been doing in your campaigns, on your landing page, your products, your pricing, you need to be able to see what happened afterwards. And this is what we call conversion tracking. And what I would like you to do is to really write down every single step your customer has to take, essentially like from the first impression, from the first time they hear something about you until they buy and leave some profits with you. I want you to look at your traffic sources, your websites or landing pages, your email, CRM, your sequences, and your checkout process. What are steps that people have to go through, and can you optimize some of those steps? Obviously, yes, there's always something to do. No e-commerce store is happy, and I can promise you that every single time I ask somebody to show me their shop, they are like, yeah, but we are still working on it. It's the same for me. I'm always still working on my website. That is just the default state everybody is in. But let's look at the concrete example. Let's just do this for an ad campaign, because a lot of people in e-commerce are able to build profitable paid campaigns. And I think it's most important to crack the analytics parts if you are spending money on ads, because otherwise you can so quickly lose your money. Yeah, and it puts you faster into the drain than if you just go for organic. So what happens in ads? You have an impression. People see your ads. People need to click. They need to go to your page views and see your sites. They need to add something to the shopping cart. They need to initiate the checkout, and they need to buy something. Quite simple. But are you already able to track these numbers in your analytics tool or in your shop software? I hope you are. And if you are doing this in a simple spreadsheet, that is actually something that I'm going to recommend in a second. So what I want you to be able to say is something like, if I spend 5,000 euro on Facebook or Instagram ads, you get 500,000 impressions, 5,927 people click. Okay, you lose some people because your website is a bit slow, so 5,300 people are on my website, 1,300 add something to the cart, 1,000 initiate checkout, and 500 people buy something in my checkout. This is what you should be able to say. And of course, the story continues, but we are starting from the basics and upgrading the level. Your ability to track those numbers is absolute key, and your user journey might be different. It could be a lead generation step in between. It could be SEO tracking and your impressions in the search console, not your impressions in ads. It could be a mobile app experience. You need to define your own customer journey and have the ability to define the numbers here for yourself. And that begs the question, but how do I do this kind of tracking? We had a nice talk about Google Tag Manager. If you want to download those slides and watch the video, go to getpirateskills.com/tag manager. And there are many companies showing support here and that are going to help you to set this up. But maybe you can start on your own and then improve over time, especially if you are starting to make higher sales. An investment in a good analytics setup usually results in a pretty good return of advertising spend. If you are already profitable without it, it can make you incredibly more profitable. In this meetup, we talked about Google Tag Manager as like a layer between your online shop and your analytics providers and your advertising tools. Let's say using Facebook ads for Instagram and Facebook, WhatsApp. You use Google Analytics and Google Ads for those parts, YouTube ads, search ads, display ads, and you're using LinkedIn maybe for your B2B customer acquisition strategy to target other merchants. You need a tool stack that can help you, and a basic tool stack that I usually recommend is, first of all, given that your cookie consent solution, we can talk about that in a bit, is compatible with it, start using the settings in your shop. Yeah, but if you want to go beyond that, Google Tag Manager is a pretty good baseline, and it is a more simple way to manage many cookies. If you do advertising on many platforms, it keeps you a bit more sane than hard coding everything. Google Analytics, I would say, is like the basic tracking tool that everybody should have installed who is not forbidden to use analytics because of corporate policies. Google Ads can receive conversions from Google Analytics, but there are advantages to using the Google ad conversion tags directly. The Facebook Pixel is helpful for estimating customer lifetime value. We're going to look at that in a second. And then every other ad and service pixel, may it be your Pinterest tag, your Bing tag, or service pixels like your chat software or your CRM, you make it much more easier for your analytics tools to talk to each other if you have the complete overview. Of course, you want to be responsible and only track what people are consenting to, but that is the next strategy, not this one. And there are benefits beyond just better reports if you set up your conversion tracking properly. For me, the most important thing is that your conversion signals are used to optimize your campaign. If you have a pretty broad Facebook campaign, let's say you're targeting 5% of the lookalikes of your past purchases on Facebook, and there are like 1.5 million people in that audience. And you want Facebook to be able to pick the best people that are most likely to purchase your product out of 1.5 million. You better give Facebook some feedback about what's working and what's not working. This is what the conversion tracking setup is doing for you and me. It's helping me to obviously see in a table of data what's working, what's not. But in the background, it's the machine-to-machine talk that we as growth marketers have to keep on enabling so that they can optimize themselves. Another thing is, if you, let's say, just use a spreadsheet, you cannot split that data as much as you like. If you want to get a gender split or an age split afterwards, you usually cannot do this in your spreadsheet. You have to have that data in your ads manager or in a tool like Google Analytics that allows you to do this kind of stuff. And your conversions can also be integrated with other tools like your CRM. Let's say you want to send messages, email messages only to people who have added something to the cart but did not check out. You need to be able to track that and to remind people that they forgot something in their shopping cart. So those kind of connections are benefits beyond just better reporting that I think are incredibly worth it and makes that strategy of improving your conversion tracking, which doesn't sound sexy, a very likely candidate for a high impact tactic for doubling your e-commerce profits. If this was very detailed, I understand. You can download those slides at getpiratesgoods.com/analyze and look at the numbers in your own time and see what makes sense for you. And you may want to watch some of the videos that come after this one is released on our YouTube channel, or watch some of the ones before to get a bit broader context once the complete series is online. All right, and in the next part, we now learned that conversion tracking is so important. We need to be allowed to do conversion tracking. And for that, we need consent, and we need to manage that well. So let's see if there are new questions in our feed. Oh yeah, we are now up to 6 questions. Is the internal Shopify Analytics GDPR conform? Yeah, these are the questions that I'm looking for. So keep on entering your own questions and upvoting them. And we will answer them at the end of this meetup. Thank you already for the questions you have put in. To get to this question part, if you checked in later, is to go to slido.com, enter the code R, and you will end up here. And in a little bit, we will also ask you for some feedback about this meetup. And it would be already awesome if you just open your Slido or the Slido on your mobile phone on the site, if you're not watching this already on your mobile phone. Cool. Let's head back to the slides. So managing your cookie consent well today is such an integral part of our performance marketing strategy in e-commerce that I named this number 8 out of 15 in our e-commerce series. And you really need to crack that cookie. If you can't get people to consent to your tracking, then you are in a really tough spot. This is an example of wish.com, a Chinese e-commerce store which has gotten really popular, and you can see this teeny tiny little consent option at the bottom. It is not actually really required to press. You can see with the plugins here that Google Analytics is tracking, Facebook's already firing, other pixel are firing. Chinese companies or non-EU companies are not yet as sensitized towards data privacy concerns as we are here because of the recent and of course also older changes in the privacy laws. It is simply not an option for us today to just have a 5% opt-in rate because you will not be able to see what people are doing on your website after they clicked. Yes, you get your data from your shop, and that is a good that is a good thing that you have some true data in your shop analytics, but Facebook won't know what's happening. Google Ads can't conversion optimize itself. So it's not an option for us. We need to get real about cookie consent management. This is a screenshot from my own cookie banner from Ball Labs on my WordPress website. Sadly, this is only a WordPress only solution. One of the most important thing that this does for me, it shows me how many people have just chosen the essential cookies, which is essentially opting out, and the people who have decided to use media and marketing cookies. And you can see that maybe like 30–40% of people opted into my cookie tracking. Of course, my audience is pretty tech savvy and maybe doesn't want to be tracked as much because we understand how much tracking goes on in the background. So I completely understand, but for fuck's sake, please opt into my cookies. So what you want, consent, is to be in your face. Here is how my Ball Labs cookie consent looks. It darkens the website, it is in the center, it is set up per default to just essentials, but the main call to action is to save all cookies. And you can check this out at www.piratesgoods.com/workshops if you want to take a look, or just check it out on the balllabs.io website. pops up there as well. Of course, designed differently. I've seen as high as 80% opt-in rate with the Bar Labs cookie in less tech-savvy audiences. And it actually tells you how many people opted in. So you can make experiments on your cookie design and see where you get actually more opt-ins. Let's look at some best practice examples. Here we have Zalando. I used to go to Zalando for inspiration because they had like 36 cookies running at the same time on their website. They have really gotten serious about their cookie consent policy and what they're tracking and what they are not tracking anymore. And they have chosen this half-covered website, so people are not that tempted to just surf on the website without making a decision. Also, check out what they're doing on the mobile experience. It's highly suggestive to make a decision here so you have it out of your way and you can start your shopping experience. From the low bar at the bottom of the site, cookie banners, I like this one very much. Let's look at Etsy. Etsy is very internationally minded and an interesting place to look at. They have decided for the central in-your-face solution without your option to use the website in the background. They do not have an opt-out option, but just accepting and updating. And I think getting a high number of people to make a decision here is very likely because there is no option not to make a decision. There is no little X here that tells you just to click it away, or no button that tells you, no, I don't want any tracking. That doesn't exist here. It's a smart thing. You still have to remember they are not an EU company, and we still have to wait what is going to be really allowed and what not. So I just wanted to share some good best practice examples that I personally like. And now you have to make a choice, like what kind of cookie consent tool do I use? And first rule is do not make compromises on user experience in your tool. If you can't design it, if you can't make reasonable experiments, if it does look like crap, don't use it, even if it's compatible with your system. But that's the second thing. You need to pick a solution for your system. They are constantly changing. You need to try some different ones until you find something that you like for your Shopify, your WooCommerce, whatever store you're using. Or you can roll your own solution, of course, which is more expensive to set up initially, but might be just the user experience you're looking for. I want you to be able to measure your consent rate. It's not personal data. If you're just tracking how many people clicked on yes, how many on no, yeah, on a browser window. So try to measure, like I showed you with the Bar Labs example on my own website, how many people just choose the essentials or opted out, and how many people chose your marketing cookies. And you need to aim for about 50% and more. Depending on your audience, you can reach as high as 90% cookie consent opt-in rate, realistically these times. But you need to optimize this over time. So cookie consent optimization is now part, for me, of conversion rate optimization. So you need to start looking at it with this attitude and not just as this ugly banner that you have to slap onto your website that doesn't matter much. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, and I want to talk about this more in the future and what kind of cookie acceptance banners are working for me in projects that I'm working in, then keep subscribed to our YouTube channel and I will keep you notified. All right, so now we have got the basics of managing our cookie consent well. We are ready to actually do what we wanted to do. To be able to learn faster, to see in our reports what changes actually lowered our cost per acquisition, what changes cost per acquisition, which changes increased our customer lifetime value. So better reporting and faster learning is coming right up. Cool. we got a lot new questions. No, actually we got more upvotes on the questions that we already have. So we still have time for more questions. So head over to slido.com, enter the code RAARR, and you will be able to upvote the questions that you see here. And you can add your own questions so you make it more relevant. And at the end of the meetup, now comes the last part, we're going to answer most of those questions. So if there are only 6 to 10 questions, we can answer all of them. So keep on adding to make it much more fun and interesting for you personally. Cool, let's continue. Better reporting for me means faster learning. And that is a key thing I can do in terms of my analytics setup optimization in order to double my e-commerce profits. This is my tactic number 9 in this series. So if you want to become a reporting ninja, just keep on listening. I want to go through it in iterations and go from like a simple to a bit more complex setup and tell you what has been worthwhile for me in real practice. I highly recommend a pretty simple e-commerce spreadsheet that I'm going to show you that just has the truth from different data sources in it, because the truth that you see in your Google Analytics can be very much different from what your bookkeeper is telling you. And maybe in between there's the shop, because shop analytics, because they're the basis of what you're exporting in your in your tax statements, they're 99% close to the truth. They're usually informed about most of the returns you have. Your analytics tools usually are not. Then Google Analytics as the basic, then Facebook Analytics reports, and the rules that we want to create in order that allow us to scale up or down our, for example, paid marketing efforts. The whole reason why we do this reporting is to make decisions and to act. And we need to define those rules when we are willing to scale up stuff and when we need to start scaling down because we don't want to go broke. So this is the very simple version. Yeah, it's based on what we saw in the parts before. It's a very simple e-commerce spreadsheet. I want you to have this at the very minimum on a weekly basis. How much did you spend, let's say on ads? How many impressions did you get? How many clicks? How many visitors resulted out of those clicks? These are not the same. Yeah. How many purchases you got? How much money in terms of net revenue you got? And what your return of advertising spend was for this time period. And of course, some people are not going to have yet a very cash flow positive spreadsheet like this one. Having a ROAS of 300 is for most people roughly acceptable. Of course, we all want to spend less for more revenue, but this is already pretty reasonable. But what if you're spending more money than you earn, or you're spending more than your margin? Then somewhere here, stuff got lost. Too few people who visited your website actually bought something, and you need to make improvements. This is why I want to go into a much more detailed version of this simplified spreadsheet. So this is the extended e-commerce conversion spreadsheet, which has a simple philosophy. Every step that the user takes needs to be documented in terms of amount, cost per step, and the conversion rate based on the previous step. So let's look at this. Again, these are the same numbers that we looked for at before, just more detailed. Why do I make it more detailed? Because people are dropping off in this funnel. This is a user journey, and you have lots more people watching your ads than buying your stuff. Yeah, you're losing people here. And the points where you're using the most people, where the funnel starts to shrink, these are your biggest opportunities to make optimizations and improve your cost per acquisition and increase your customer lifetime value. And that is the fundamental balance that we are trying to figure out in our e-commerce model. And in order to see where people get lost, we need to understand each step of the conversion. And in the last part, I showed you like how to get consent from the tracking, and in the part before, like how do you set up in a very simplified way, in a very short explanation, how to set up those conversion events so that you're able to see those numbers. Now we go through it with a fine comb, and I'm curious if you actually expected that so many steps are necessary for a customer to actually buy something, and what can go wrong and go right in here. Again, we are looking at a time period. Let's say it's a month in which we spend 5,000 euro. You could be spending this in a day, it doesn't matter. It is pretty normal on Facebook and Instagram to pay 10 euro for 1,000 impressions, which results into 500,000 impressions of our ads about our amazing product. In a 30-day period, it's absolutely okay if they see it 2.5 times. So 200,000 people that reach actually see your product. They see it on average 2.5 times. And now people can make a big decision. And this is the first big barrier that people need to take. You can force people to watch your ads, to see them, because they are in the newsfeed, and not all platforms have functioning ad blockers. Gladly, yeah, for us marketers. Now they need to make this big decision of clicking or touching on a link and going to your website. And we usually look at the click-through rate from the points of impressions and how many people click through. But I want you to start thinking in your user journey as something that individual people walk through. You can absolutely see this in absolute numbers, but I've chosen in this expanded spreadsheet to look at it as a single person who clicks and then makes many clicks, but we still count them just as one. This is what's called a unique click, and a unique click-through rate of 3% in this case. So maybe the total click-through rate is lower than that. Wait, let me go back. Not really competent at using this. All right, so maybe you're seeing usually your click-through rate, lower click-through rate on Facebook. A 1% and higher click-through rate is considered acceptable for me. If they see it 2.5 times, yeah, like we can see here, a click-through rate of 3% is not too much. I see that very regularly. But if you just look at the absolute numbers, this might look a bit too high. But we're looking at unique click-through rate, and you can set this up in your Facebook columns. That results into 5,927 clicks, as we saw before, but now we can see how much did we pay for that step. That is called the cost per click, the CPC. 84 cents, pretty reasonable still. 90% of people land on my website, and that happens because people get lost. My website maybe takes too long. There is never 100% of people actually coming from a click to my website. In this case, we assume an otherwise 100% conversion rate towards like cookie consent. Yeah, we get to track everybody in our fantasy. Now, this results into 5,300 users, and those users start a session, maybe start multiple sessions, we just count them once. Maybe we should better call it unique viewers. And this costs us 94 cents. Now let's look at the rest of this journey. Here people have already made the decision to go to our website, but now the next big barrier. I could just send cheap traffic from Outbrain, Taboola, some native advertising or display ads in mobile apps that have really strong clickbaity ad systems, and get them to my website. But if they do not put something to the shopping cart, they are obviously not interested in what we're doing. So this is the next most important step. How many people add something to their shopping cart? Out of those 5,000, it is 1,334. That leaves 35% of the people that have come to our website. These percentages are always based on the step before, in case you're wondering. So an add to cart cost us €3.75. A unique checkout, that is the action after a person puts several things into their shopping cart and then initiates the checkout, 1,000 people reach. So 75% of people do that, and that costs us €5. And 500 people out of that 1,000 actually manage it. So 50% of people who initiated the checkout also buy something. In the example before, this number was much higher, but this is more reasonable. Overall, I also listed the purchases per session, per user who visited there. I guess user would be more accurate in this case, is 9.4, because that is usually considered the e-commerce conversion rate. The total e-commerce conversion rate based on sessions and not a unique user perspective usually is much lower. It's considered 3% is already high, 4% is excellent, 9% you only ever reach if you look at the unique users, or if you're retargeting people who have been on frequent shoppers on your mailing list. But that results into a cost per purchase of €10. Yeah, nice round numbers. Of course, I tweaked the numbers there a little bit to reach those nice numbers. All right, but what happens after the purchase? So again, this is a huge barrier. People just surfing and checking out stuff, and people actually leaving money. If you start to internationalize your e-commerce store, you will realize this, because people in your former market are very more likely to convert than people in a new market, and maybe people in markets that don't have that much money. They serve, they add to cart, they initiate the checkout, but maybe they're not happy with the shipping rates, and there's a much higher break-off rate there. So there we got another barrier. People who have just visited and interacted, and people who are now actually buying. So a purchase, we have 500 purchases here. The cost per purchase is €10. But we also need to consider the costs of goods sold. In order to simplify this, I took a product that cost €60 in net prices plus VAT. So maybe it's a little smart home device like an Amazon Echo something. Yeah, it costs €30, and maybe it costs the company €10 to produce it, ship it, and consider refund rates and other costs per goods sold. They need to spend €10 per purchase on ads. That leaves them €10 in profit. Yeah, this is the most important thing, that this number is higher than 0. Since they have spent now in total €10,000. How does that 10,000 come together? We have €10 per purchase. We have 500 purchases. This is €5,000 plus the €5,000 that we spent up there for ads. We get cost of €10,000. We got revenue of 15,000, and that leaves us a profit of €5,000. So we spend €5,000, and after deducting all costs, including the ad spend, we are left with €5,000. Pretty fun game to play. And this is just a return of advertising spend of 3. If you are looking at costs of net revenue divided by costs. But if you look at it in terms of like financial investments, your return of investment, if you invest 100, you get an additional 100, so 100% upside. Not bad. If you're able to do this in a month, to double your money every month, that is pretty significant. If I would offer you that deal as a stockbroker, you would send me to jail. If I offer you anything that is more like 10% per year in investments, I'm considered a charlatan. But in e-commerce, we're absolutely expecting these kinds of returns of our investments. And this is why I'm not very keen in putting my money into stocks, because I play this game every day and it makes much, much more fun than waiting for some measly 5 to 10% on my home or my stock portfolio investment. If you want to get a Google Sheets version of this. I put a link down below at getpirateskits.com/ecom-sheet. Then you can check the numbers and see my formulas in case that is interesting for you and you want to apply this to your own business. It's a very simple spreadsheet. Maybe I will beautify it in the future. So now you see how detailed actually the user journey is. And to be honest, there could be several steps included as well, like visiting the product detail page or category pages, or in the checkout, the shipping side, the payment options. I already simplified it. And we have here, what do we have? Like 30 lines. It's because as growth marketers, we need to look at the amount of the conversion event happening, let's say an add to cart event. We need to look at the cost and we need to look at the conversion rates. Why is that so? Because the conversion rate we can actually impact. We can optimize our store in order for more people to put something into their shopping cart. We can optimize our store for people who have initiated the checkout to purchase more. For example, by offering more fitting payment solutions or lowering our delivery fees. So the percentages are in our control and the costs are always just a result of the percentages lining up. Okay, I hope this was not like making you crazy or anything. I hope you find this as helpful as I do when I think through my scenarios. I usually do this kind of spreadsheet or have this in my tracking tool, and it doesn't matter what business model it is. I would do this for a B2B lead generation funnel just as well, but the lines would be just called differently, like cost per lead, cost per call, cost per offer sent, cost conversion rate of offer to contract sold, stuff like that. But you probably want to go beyond the spreadsheet. Your shop analytics, this is a screenshot from a Shopify store, is pretty close to the truth. And you need to find the data that you put into the spreadsheet somewhere, right? And your online store is usually the best source for information like the true average shopping cart size, how many purchases you actually have, what your refund rate is, what your average shopping cart size is, your customer lifetime value can be estimated here best. And you get many interesting KPIs already out of your shopping cart analytics. What it doesn't do is communicate with your ad platforms and your other tools that you're using directly. You need to have that separately. Another tool that I love to use is Google Analytics. This is like my default tool that I go to. As you can see, here is a screenshot from the e-commerce part of it where I can see my revenue, e-commerce conversion rate, the transactions I have, the average order value. I can see a nice histogram over time and see maybe how the upcoming Black Friday impacted my sales and the conversion rates of my discounts. I can very easily manage time frames in Google Analytics. And you can be extremely sophisticated in your attribution tracking within Google Analytics e-commerce tracking. And this is something where you might be interested in getting some help by like a nearby agency. I like to use Google Analytics mostly because it's very neutral. It shows me the user flow across many channels. Like if I look at my Facebook Ads Manager, I of course only see the data from the Facebook Ads Manager. But here I can see the data from my SEO traffic, from my social influencer campaigns, and from my Facebook ads. And you see graphs like this where you get to see like, oh, what is my best performing product? And you can slice and dice this data for you to find the treasure, yeah, that you're looking for. But Google is not very good at estimating your customer lifetime value, and the tool that is actually really good is Facebook Analytics. So why is Facebook so good at it? Because it essentially sends your Facebook user ID with every interaction after consent, and that allows you to track pretty well across many devices that you use, as long as you have like a login into Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp in some capacity. And you get this graph. This is Facebook Analytics. Now, this is different than your Facebook Ads Manager. The Facebook Analytics actually receives data from all of your traffic sources. It's more neutral than the Facebook Ads Manager. And if you go to facebook.com/analytics, you can see what you already have there or not. If you go to this tab called lifetime value, you see something very interesting. Here you see, if you press this paying user button, and I usually go for a 90-day time frame, here you can see how the customer lifetime value increases over weeks. 90 days are roughly like 12 weeks. And you can now see that in this case, the customer lifetime value starts at $50 and goes to $100 within 100 days. And you can also scroll down and see this as a cohort analysis. So why am I excited about this? Especially those averages that I see up here. It says on week 0, that is the first purchase a user makes, it's €49, and at the end, after 12 weeks, it's $100, not euros in this case. Why is this so interesting? If you are considering how much you should be spending on ads to acquire a customer, you usually decide on a percentage of the revenue that you're making. I usually recommend something in the beginning of aiming for 20% of your net revenue. Let's say your product costs €50, so target for 10-15 euros cost per acquisition. But if your €50 product generates more sales over time, up to €100, why not spend twice as much in cost per acquisition? Meaning 20 to 30 euro instead of 10 to 15 euro, because you know that you get the money back within 12 weeks if you have confidence in your numbers. And Facebook Analytics should give you more confidence in your numbers, because it's very good at keeping the user ID consistent over a long period of time. And I hardly know a better tool than doing it in your database by hand, by SQL. And that shows it to you in this nice cohort analysis way. So this opens you up to a complete new level of potential investment in cost per acquisition. And why does this matter? Because in e-commerce, we are usually in a competitive market, and whoever is willing to spend more for the acquisition of a customer is going to gain more market share. That's just a natural law. It's a real-time bidding system, and if you keep on bidding higher in the auctions, you will win more auctions over time. The only thing is that you have to make it sustainable. And by looking at the customer lifetime value like this, you see that it is sustainable for you, and it should make even more keen to not only always focus on customer acquisition costs, but also improving your customer lifetime value, because that affords you to have a higher cost per acquisition. I hope this makes sense to you. If you have questions about that, you can ask them on Slido in a second. Back to the fundamentals. Why do we do all of this crap? We want to be able to see what the balance currently is of our cost per acquisition and our customer lifetime value, because only if the cost per acquisition is lower, we're going to have fun. Otherwise, we're going to go broke pretty quick, especially on high ad spends. So why do we do all this? We need to be able to act on the numbers that we see. If we see our campaign has a ROAS of 3.5 and higher, and that is our minimum, then what do we do about it? hopefully you make the decision to slowly start scaling up the budget of your campaign. Don't overdo it. Algorithms are fickle things these days. A change like a 10% per day increase is already a lot for Facebook to take, but still within reason. Doubling, tripling, quadrupling your budget in a short period of time needs some finesse in the execution process. You usually want to go for a more slow and gradual increase. But you might also see that some of your campaigns do not have your minimum ROAS. Yeah, let's say it's 3.5 and you see only a 2.8. Here we have a 3.9, it's fine, let's scale it up, 2.8. Now, if we lower the budget, there is less pressure on the auction and the chance that your campaigns can become profitable again increases. So you want to scale down or even pause your campaigns. If you see after a certain amount of ad spend that is reasonable, that you have consistent numbers, you want to scale those down, you want to pause them. That's the game that we want to play. We want to use all of this analytics juju to be as precise and as fast as possible in our decisions about scaling our budgets and our investments, because that helps you increase your profits in your e-commerce store the most. Cool. If that's cool for you and you want to hear more about this crazy nerdy stuff, then subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at getpirateskills.com/YouTube. Leave us a like and a comment. We are always answering the questions that we see there. And I generally would really like to crack the first 1,000 subscribers really soon. All right, we talked about why analytics matters. We showed you how to improve your conversion tracking, managing cookie consent well, and what matters in reports and some tools around that. I understand that this was just 1 hour of input about a topic that is worth talking about for weeks, and where you will need a certain amount of time invested to upskill, but I hope it shortens your learning curve, and you can take some of those ideas into action, and you can talk to me and ask me like if you did something right or not, or if I should look over something. And there are always other people in this Pirate Skills community that are very willing to help you. And at the end, we always have time for the Q&A. That's in the next part. All right, let's see what happened in our Q&A section. So welcome to the last part here, our Q&A. We have 7 questions. I would say let's dig right in. So the first question that I can see, actually before we actually start with the questions, guys, do me a favor and head over to theslido.com and start giving this meetup a little rating. If you're already there, you can see this graph here. How likely would you recommend this event to a friend or colleague? We really need your honest feedback. It's totally okay if you want to give me 1 point out of 10 to improve and to see what you're interested in, so we can do more of that stuff. I'll keep that open and just head over to the questions where we can answer them, and we will look at the poll results in a minute. All right, let's go to the 7 questions in the e-commerce Q&A. The first question that has the most upvotes is, in case of Facebook and Instagram, isn't it important to have a unique ad for each platform because of the reached audience? Absolutely. And thank God Facebook put in a feature that gives us the ability to specify the ad for every single placement, not only for the Facebook and Instagram newsfeed, but you can specify it on the same ad, seriously. For the stories, to make them more vertical, for the audience network, for messenger ads. Yes, you absolutely have to do this. And this was the case in the A/B scenario in our little game we played, Broker Billions. But very good point and very true that you have to optimize it for each placement. Next question. Why did you suggest conversion tracking with Google Ads conversion tags when this is already done by importing Google Analytics goals? So if you have set up your Google Analytics right, you already see e-commerce data, and you can send those transactions to Google Ads, and then it can optimize itself, and it is my preferred way to do it. So why would you do it with Google Ads conversion tags? There are a couple of reasons. One of the disadvantages of doing it through Google Analytics is if you have several referrers in between, not just a Facebook ad that straight converts into a purchase. That's the simplest scenario, but also not the most likely one. Then it's very easy to see like, oh yeah, this ad resulted into this much revenue. But what if you sent them to a landing page that gave people a coupon code, or they go somewhere else, they come back later, and then they buy something? So there are a couple of different referrers in between. Only the last referrer is going to be attributed to that purchase at the end. And if this is not Google Ads that we started with in the beginning, then Google Ads will not get feedback from Google Analytics. That means you're counting less conversion than you actually cost. Why is that a problem? It's a problem because you need a certain amount of conversions per week. I usually recommend 50 conversions per week in your ad set in order for the conversion rate optimization algorithm, the campaign optimization algorithm to really be working strongly for you. But if you get too few attributions back to Google Ads, then you have less feedback. So just keep it parallel. Keep your analytics stuff running, but also have the Google Ads conversion tag running in parallel. Set it on the add to cart, set it on the initiate checkout, on the purchase, fill it with values, because it does not care about what happens in between. It attributes it to the clicked or seen ad. Stuff happens on different referrers. Google Analytics loses track, but Google Ads, the Google conversion tag does not lose track, and it will attribute that conversion to that ad. Yes, will you have overlapping in different numbers than in Google Ads, Google Analytics? Yes, of course. You will usually see higher numbers of conversions in the Google tag. And I personally use it as a second source to verify how many sales my traffic channel is doing, and to be more efficient, having to spend less money per campaign and ad set for the 50 conversions per week to kick in. That's my answer. What do we have here? 5 more questions. Is it possible or clever to use this just for leads and not for purchases, or is this only usable for e-com? Absolutely, this is usable for all channels. I think e-commerce people just are the smartest and most experienced about doing it in an extremely number-driven way. And if you look at stuff like conversion rate optimization and analytics, the e-commerce people have historically been the ones who are most experienced and are very skillful in it, because the monetary incentive is immediately obvious. For B2B lead generation, it might take you weeks or months from the first touch point to the conversion. So our ability to predict cost per acquisition on a contract basis and the customer lifetime value, it's incredibly much worse than compared to e-commerce. We usually have a click and a purchase within a day. You absolutely should do it for your lead generation strategy as well. Right, so 4 more questions. You can add more questions if you like. Is the internal Shopify analytics GDPR conform Or how should I treat those cookies to be on the safe side when I want to track the full funnel? Okay, I love this one because it's tricky and it has caused me trouble in the past. So Shopify, again, a US store that is not under as strict GDPR restrictions as we are here in good old Germany. No, it is not properly GDPR compliant. Why is it not? Because it doesn't force user. Let's say you use the Shopify settings, enter your Google Analytics code in your Facebook pixel. Those are the two default options. All data gets sent really nicely. I love the data that comes from Shopify, from the normal setting integration. I love it. But people are not being asked. But there is a plugin for that. And there is always a plugin for something in Shopify and in any other online store like Magento and WooCommerce and whatever you're using. A common solution that I didn't think about in the beginning is the ability for your cookie consent plugin to just block the cookies that would normally be loaded. Let's say your Facebook pixel wants to fire, your plugin just blocks it. It doesn't only not block it when people consented. So you can leave your default installation of your Shopify analytics, at least the Facebook and Google Ads integration, as long as you choose a plugin that suppresses that. Other plugins are also very good by only firing and managing your pixel by itself. So you have to enter your Facebook pixel ID there in the plugin, and then it fires the e-commerce events from there. The data might not be as nice as from the Google, from the Shopify settings, but they are pretty good. What you have to be very careful about with Shopify is that there is different tracking behavior on your storefront, and once people enter the checkout, which happens on the Shopify domain. So be very sure that if people do not consent, that your Facebook pixel, for example, is suppressed not only on the website, but also in the checkout process. And if they consent, that it's firing on both ends. This is something specific for Shopify. If you are wondering, if your question was more related to the Shopify e-commerce dashboard without the configuration of the pixels, then people have to agree to terms of services and data and tracking policies that are like mandatory for the purchase. Are there some legal people who would say this is non-compliant? Definitely. Would I worry about it at the moment? Hardly. Is this a legal recommendation? No. 3 more questions. Does it make sense to use Google Tag Manager if Google Analytics is already set up through, let's say, Shopify settings? If you have a good shop integration which works with your consent management well, then adding Google Analytics gives you the flexibility to also track stuff like, oh, people signed up to my newsletter, people reached a certain landing page, people started a survey, people did all kinds of stuff in the shop that is not e-commerce related. It also gives you the flexibility to go beyond the pixels that are already fully integrated through plugins or the settings in your store. Let's say Pinterest, which is now becoming a more and more interesting ad platform for e-commerce, is not yet integrated in a plugin or in your shop, or you don't like the integrations, or it's not GDPR compliant. You can usually roll a GDPR compliant version through Google Tag Manager. Gives you a lot of flexibility. I love to do that. 2 more questions. How can I track my e-commerce sales from social media posts and influencers? What I like to do is to send an additional referrer code for each influencer or social campaign. There are tools like the Google Campaign Builder, just Google for that, that will help you to add so-called UTM parameters. After the link you want to share, you can put it through a link shortener like bit.ly and then share it on social media and with your influencers. This is also highly recommended because you get a third-party perspective on how many clicks you actually got from which campaign, and you get more detailed tracking in your Google Analytics. Last question of the day. What's your opinion about the e-commerce tracking in the new Google Analytics 4? So I've been experimenting with that for quite a while now, and I think it's in complete development or beta status. Google Analytics 4 is, if you are very interested in like web app, more event-driven tracking, it's highly competent, but you have to be able to pretty much set up all of the important reports yourself, to fire the events yourself. I like it. I don't think it's usable for the average Google Analytics user yet. We will get there over time, but at the moment, I will not recommend pressing the upgrade to Google Analytics 4 button just yet. Yeah, keep waiting a little bit. Okay, those are all the questions. Let's take a look at the poll. How can I actually see the poll again? Let's stop it and start it again. So we got 7 votes. We got an average of 7.9. Thank you very much for your honest feedback. I really appreciate it. And it looks like we're gonna keep on talking a little bit more about analytics in the context of performance marketing and growth marketing. If you have specific questions and topic suggestions, I would really appreciate that. So we answered all of the questions that came in, which leaves me just to say thank you for the last vote. I hope we see each other again. This was not the end of this journey. We got a nice next e-commerce related meetup coming up. You see there's a series going on, and the next main topic is about traffic generation, and we're going to talk about a much more applied version of today in terms of how do I have to manage my campaign in order to get a return of investment of, in this case, 5. That means investing €1,000, making €5,000 in net revenue back. That is a ROAS of 5. That is a cost per acquisition of 20% of net revenue. I think it's quite reasonable, even though the headline sounds a bit clickbaity, but it's not. If you want to get a free ticket, go to getpirateskills.com/1K to 5K. And of course, we will record this as always and upload the different segments, and you can download the slides later. You can't make it on December 7th, but it's so much more fun to do this in live and to read your questions and to see your feedback. If you're interested in digging into more of this, we got a series of workshops around this. Today we did actually the analytics workshop before this meetup. It's like a complete whole day workshops, and there are 6 out of those. If you're interested in that, head over to growth.pirateskills.com, and I'll just explain like what kind of workshops we have there. And if not, no worries, we got everything uploaded on YouTube. It's a huge library now. And I would really appreciate it if you sub to the channel and engage with us there by commenting, asking questions, and leaving some likes. That would be my ask for the night. If you want to stay in touch beyond this meetup, just hang out in our Discord community. I will usually hang out in Discord after the live stream and talk to you guys. So enter one of the voice channels over there in a second after this meetup, and we can talk and chat a little bit. Maybe you have another question or two for your specific case. That's it for tonight. This was analyzing your way to e-commerce profitability. Hope to see you on December 2nd. Bye bye.